Welcome to Random But Memorable, a podcast from 1Password. I'm Rue, head of password manager development.
I'm Matt Davey, 1Password's chief experience officer.
I'm Sarah, one of the founders at 1Password.
I'm Anna, the producer behind the show.
And we're the hosts behind Random But Memorable. Together, we offer up bi-weekly security advice, interview special guests from the cybersecurity community, and round up the latest security news in Watchtower Weekly. Plus, we may even play a silly security game or two. So sit back and enjoy the show.
So, Rue, you've been away on some PTO. Where did you go?
I was, yes. The family and I took a summer family vacation to New York City, which was a drivable distance from where we live, which was great. And it was an incredible trip. It was so much fun. We stayed right in Midtown Manhattan, and it was not relaxing, but it was adventurous. We just saw a million different iconic sites around New York City and just got to enjoy some museums and enjoy Central Park and went to a Yankees game and they won, which was not slated to happen for that particular series. But I'll tell you what, the entire trip was wonderful. We are now at the point as a family where when we travel, we try to get a suite, or in this case, we got adjoining hotel rooms. So the kids have their own space and we have our own space. Which is a lot more expensive to travel this way. But like when you're in the moment, it's like, oh, this is so great. Like we have a lot of our own space right now. We don't have to worry about it. So if you can swing it, I highly recommend it.
Nice. I'm picturing the McAllisters from Home Alone.
Nope.
Like that. No? Oh, okay.
That was not our hotel room at all.
Nice. Well, that's awesome.
You didn't have $1,000 room service bill then, like the McAllisters?
Did not have $1,000 room service bill. No.
Okay, let's get into the show, shall we? So we're theming our episodes a little bit more these days. So this week we're going to be covering digital parenting and how to protect your kids online. So later in the episode, you'll hear a fantastic discussion between Rue and Alanna Powers from the Family Online Safety Institute. Alanna helps parents, caregivers and kids navigate the digital world with confidence. So Rue, I'm sure you'll probably agree with me that this interview is absolutely packed with tips for parents, but not only that, for godparents, aunts, uncles and anyone who is considering having children in the future, I think. So yeah, did you enjoy it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, this was a great chat. I always love getting to talk to people who work at places like Alanna does with FOSI. It was just a great interview and great to be like, oh yeah, I hadn't thought about that, or oh, here's how I've navigated that, and just getting to have those conversations with someone for whom it is their day job was a lot of fun. So definitely stay tuned to listen to that piece of the show.
Excellent. But before we get into that, we have Watchtower Weekly. So Rue, you've got a meaty topic for us to discuss this week. So shall we not waste any more time and get stuck into it?
Yeah, let's move over to some Watchtower Weekly. This is where we like to reflect on the latest cybersecurity news and connect some of the dots to understand the broader topics and trends shaping technology and cybersecurity. Keeping up with this episode's theme, our topic today is digital childhood, how kids are being exposed and protected in the age of data.
Okay, so before you kick things off, Rue, I just wanted to look back at some stories about AI data scraping. So we all know that AI companies need a lot of information to build their models, a crazy amount, in fact. So the problem is that these companies are often collecting data without any kind of filter. So, for example, imagine you're a parent who's just shared a cute video of your child taking their first steps on social media. Even if a company bakes in a rule like don't scrape content posted by children, the system won't know that one of your photos features a child. So in some cases, there's no filtering happening around the collection process either. There were a bunch of news stories last year actually covering this topic, including a great report by Wired that we'll link in our show notes. So while this might seem scary, I don't want us to get too fear-mongering when we're talking about all of this, because if you're a parent, the immediate takeaway, I think, is kind of simple, and that's to lock down your privacy settings and be mindful of what you post and who might be training an algorithm with it. So that's a little bit about AI, but Rue, what's going on in like the education world.
Yeah, we hear about schools, colleges, and universities being breached all the time, which can often put learner information at risk. As Bleeping Computer reports, unfortunately, Columbia University joined this list and confirmed that it was breached earlier this summer. They're not the first. They certainly won't be the last. We're also seeing educational software providers being targeted. You might recall that PowerSchool, which provides cloud-based software for K-12 schools, was affected by a cybersecurity incident last December. Criminals were able to gain access to information about current and former students, including names, birth dates, and social security numbers. All of this is obviously heartbreaking to hear about. And that story continues to rumble on. Back in May, PowerSchool shared on its website that it's aware a threat actor has reached out to school district customers in an attempt to extort them using data from the December breach. We're not in the business of naming and shaming here at 1Password, but this topic is important, and it's a reminder that young people's data is incredibly valuable to criminals and can be compromised by no fault of the child. Sarah, do you want to talk a little bit about what's happening on the legislation side to better protect children?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different initiatives going on to really try and help parents navigate this world and try to hold businesses accountable. So over in Australia, there is the Children's Online Privacy Code, which will build on its existing Australian privacy principles that give young people the right to delete their data entirely once they turn 18. We don't have all the details just yet as they're working on this, but the consultation process is underway and the code should go into effect in 2026. Separately, you may have heard that Australia is banning children under 16 from using social media, including TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and Snapchat. Teenagers will still be able to view YouTube videos, but won't be allowed to have an account, which you would need to post videos and leave comments. Anna, as our British representation today, I imagine you've heard a lot about age verifications and age assurance on the UK side of the pond.
Oh boy, yeah, it's being talked about a lot over here. So the UK's new Online Safety Act has now come into effect, which kind of mandates strict age checks for accessing adult content. So if you want to access certain like subreddits and pornographic sites, for example, you'll need to prove your identity. So many companies are partnering with third-party identity check services like Persona to do this. The policies being implemented by Australia and the UK come from a good place, I think. Governments know there's harmful content online and want to better protect children, but it's hard to say if these are the right solutions. For example, we're already kind of seeing VPN usage explode as a way to get around these age checks. So, Rue, do you think other countries around the world are likely to follow suit on this kind of thing?
Yes, I think that they are likely to follow suit on this kind of thing. I think the thing that is odd about it, or that's a hurdle that needs to be overcome, is just the act of providing this type of information, this type of identity check to access certain types of content feels scammy. It feels like it's a phishing attack, and you're like, wait, why would I give you my personal information to be able to do this? And I think that's, which may just deter access to some of this types of material, but more likely than not, this is just going to end up in a long cat and mouse game around how do you work around it? How do you not put in your personal information before accessing certain types of material?
And surely could become a prime kind of use case to be a phishing scam.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's clearly a very tricky balancing act. So what are the potential privacy and security implications of all these changes, do we think? Like, in theory, children won't be creating social media accounts in Australia and therefore won't be generating as much data. Or do you think they'll just turn to more legally grey solutions to access the same content?
It's so hard because I think there's always going to be that desire to do stuff and connect with people. And that's where, again, like I'm thinking back to your comment just now, Rue, about, is it just feel like more data collection? Because I actually just had Google wishing me a happy birthday the other day, and it is not my birthday at all.
Happy birthday, Sarah.
But when I registered for my Google account, they would have said, "What's your birthday?" And I lied because I don't want to give Google my personal information.
Or you're just like the Queen, Sarah, and you have two birthdays.
There could be. national holiday celebrating me. Anna, I'm going to tell everybody you said we need to do that.
I think there should be.
Yeah, everyone go out and do National Random Acts of Kindness Day. That would be the day I'd pick. But regardless, I think this is the behavior that I already do. So I think the kids today are going to do something similar. Like they're going to work around it. It's like the band apps and all this kind of stuff. Like other ones pop up and the apps are there before you know it. And then there's a chat function within an app that's not supposed to be there. Like I feel like we're at a spot with technology where we really need to turn around and unfortunately, the iPhone, as great as it's been, has put everything in our pocket. And instead of it now being so in my pocket is work, is socializing, is vegetating, and just turning into a potato. All of that happens on the same device. I really feel like if I could have a different device where I'm oh, okay, I want to just go play some games from it. I would go pick up a book in the olden days. Back in the 1900s, I'd go pick up a book if I wanted to unplug for a bit. If I wanted to work, I'd go to the office space. If I wanted to connect, I would go walk down the road to my neighbor's house and, hey, what are you doing? I think there needs to be a real distinction for that for kids, because kids don't have that today. You see them in the shopping carts at the malls with their parents and they've got the screens, and you're going on a 3-hour flight. Well, you better bring at least 2 battery backup chargers because you don't want the tablet to die. I think there's something to be said for that, because I think there's a degree of being uncomfortable when you're alone with yourself, where you're what do I do with myself, and just being comfortable with that. But it's hard to teach our kids how to do that, and it's hard to be not exhausted as a parent every single step of the way. So I think it's really hard, but I think kids are always going to find a way. I don't know if you've discovered any of this, Rue, but my kids were talking about when they have kids, which is wild to me.
Wow.
But Jack is a big proponent of saying, I'm not going to give my kids a phone at least until they're 13, if not 16. He's 16. And he's saying he would never give his kids a phone, never let them have a tablet. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
It's interesting.
You would break down, and he's like, no, I've taught all of these bad habits now. I can't I'm like, all right, give me your phone. And he's like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
How am I supposed to connect with my friends? And I'm like, well, what do you think's going to happen when your kids have friends? How are they going to connect with their friends? I think everyone as a culture has to connect to it together. Otherwise, it's really you're on the fringe and you're that weird kid that doesn't have a phone yet. It's really hard for kids not to be part of the group. So it is a challenge, but yeah.
Yeah, that's certainly part of the equation, is not wanting kids to be left out as their friends are getting access to technology and stuff like that. And those are certainly conversations that we've had in our household. Yeah. So, all right. So what can we take away from all of this? I think that personally, the best way to protect the next generation is to just be mindful of what you share, whether that's on social media or educational apps and services. You can also support laws advocating for guardrails to protect children's data and that let people opt out, not just opt in. And if you found this helpful, maybe share this episode with a parent, a teacher, or anyone who's trying to raise or protect a child in the digital age, because knowledge is power at the end of the day, and knowing is half the battle, I think G.I. Joe said.
The more you know.
And that. Yeah.
And then we break out into song.
Yes, exactly. We're all in this together. I think that's the hard part, is that a lot of times parents look to other people and they're like, someone knows what's going on. Someone can tell us what's good, right? And we're all just kind of standing around looking at each other I don't know. I'm feeling it out as I go. How about you? And everyone, we just have to collectively say, yeah, we're all just going to do our best. And that's all we can do. So with all of this in mind, we're going to move on to our next segment, which is Crash Course, which is where we like to talk about something in the cybersecurity world, something with 1Password, something that we can talk about and say, what can we teach you more about in a quick few minutes to make sure that you've got something that you can go out and learn and say, I know a thing. So speaking of how we can be mindful of sharing things online, I wanted to take the opportunity to talk really about 1Password families and how you can use it to your advantage when you're doing your day-to-day digital life planning and all of that. So in a nutshell, 1Password family gives you and up to 5 family members a password manager. You all get separate accounts with your own private vaults to share your passwords, credit cards, addresses, all of that stuff. And then it also gives you the opportunity to have family vaults, which is great. So you can share things. So one of the first differentiators with 1Password families is our shared vaults. This can make it really simple to share items with your loved ones, like Wi-Fi passwords, your Disney Plus credentials, all that good stuff. And you can make as many vaults as you want. So you could have one for you and your partner, one that includes your kids, one that includes grandparents. We have one vault for each of us where it's me and Dave and kid 1, me and Dave and kid 2, me and Dave and both kids, me and Dave and all the grandparents. Like, we have lots of vaults for different stuff so we can store all of their different information, and then they've got access to everything and we can help out whether we're near or far. We talked about sharing a lot of that in our productivity special with Ali Dusam, so check that out if you missed that episode. A second advantage of 1Password families is the extra control. As the family organizer, which when you set up 1Password, the person who opens the account is the family organizer, and I strongly encourage you to get a second family member set up as a family organizer, so pro tip. But you don't have the ability to just create and share vaults. You can also manage people's permissions in those vaults. For example, you could set up a vault so that your kids can view and edit items, but can't edit or delete them. For instance, actually just last week, I was at my mother-in-law's and she was having trouble logging into a site because she didn't save it in 1Password and she forgot her password. And if only there was somewhere in which we could put our passwords. So I was setting things up for her and trying to put it into the vault. And there's a permission sharing item where I can make sure it's being shared directly into the vault that she shares with me, so then I can help her manage that as opposed to putting it in her private vault. So then I don't have access to that when I'm not available. So there's lots of different ways we can do that. But family organizers also have the power to restore access for people who forget their 1Password login information. They help manage all the billing and all the other settings. So we don't want this to be a huge sales pitch, but 1Password families is also cheaper than buying lots of individual plans, and it helps to keep everyone together. If you're struggling to persuade a family member, a relative to use a password manager, inviting them into your existing family plan is a great way to help get them over that line and start using strong passwords. Rue, do you have any ways that you like to use 1Password as a family?
So, not surprisingly, yes. The first thing is that each of the kids got their own 1Password user account in our family account pretty much right away. And I stood up shared vaults with them. So my 4-year-old wasn't putting login items in his private vaults and using it for whatever. It was more of like, hey, I think that you need to have access to this, or will need to have access to it at some point. And so we have those vaults today. And honestly, the biggest use case is any sort of streaming sign in or anything else. Like it really is that login that you need for Netflix is in the vault. Like, it's in 1Password. Oh, you have a new friend coming over, they need to get on the Wi-Fi? Well, okay, that's in 1Password as well. And you can just show them the QR code and they'll sign on automatically.
That QR code is amazing, right?
Oh, it's so great, especially when you get people showing up who aren't in the Apple ecosystem where, that sharing is sort of built in. They can just be like, just scan this thing, it's fine. And then the other one is just, certainly as the kids were changing schools, going from middle school into high school or going into middle school, making sure their locker combination was in there, like just having a spot to put all of the secure information that we need them to have and that we need to have as well. Wonderful for organization and just like knowing where things are.
The locker combo note is a good one. So I hope if you get a chance, check out 1Password families. I hope this helped tell you a little bit more about that. And now we're into the next good stuff.
Question for you both. Do you have a vault called Favorite Child, and who is that favorite child?
No. Although Sophia has named the iMessage chat with Carrie and myself as favorite daughter group chat. So I do. Nice. I have a favorite daughter and I have a favorite son.
Oh, okay. That's what their vault should be called then. Favorite daughter, favorite son.
Nice. Well, I get grief over which pictures I've picked. That doesn't really seem very reflective of the situation, Mom. You should pick a different picture.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that was on my list of things to worry about today. Thanks, kid.
Oh, my God. Yeah. Thanks. I'll get right on that.
The important stuff. Yeah.
All right. So now that we've covered 1Password for families, let's move on to my chat with Alanna Powers from FOSI. Alanna walks through FOSI's free 7 steps to good digital parenting and dives into some of the unique challenges facing children who are growing up online. This is such an insightful and thought-provoking chat, and I'm confident that if you're a parent, guardian, caregiver, child, you're going to take something away from it. So I think we'll probably just go ahead and drop it in here. Today's guest is someone who spends her time helping families stay safer and smarter online. We're joined by Alanna Powers, the head of parenting programming and research at the Family Online Safety Institute, also known as FOSI. Alanna works at the intersection of tech, education, and policy, helping parents, caregivers, and kids navigate the digital world with confidence. We had the pleasure of chatting with Stephen Balcom, the founder and CEO of FOSI, on a previous episode of this podcast. It was fantastic to hear from him on the mission behind FOSI and the amazing policy and advocacy work FOSI is doing. But we wanted to invite Alanna on the show today to walk through some practical tips and helpful advice for families looking to work together as a team and stay safe online. Alanna, it is great to have you here today. Thanks for joining the show.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
So I figured we'll start off with like online safety and scams and look at this stuff through the kids' eyes.
Yeah.
You've mentioned that FOSI's research shows kids are actually more concerned about online fraud and scams than their parents. What did that research reveal, and why do you think that there's this gap that exists?
Yes, so this is really the first thing that came to mind for me when I was invited to do this interview, knowing the work that 1Password does in this area. So the research that you are mentioning is our online safety survey. So we fielded this survey to kids aged 10 to 17 and also parents of kids in that same age range. And basically we asked the question, what are your biggest concerns when it comes to using the internet? And the results we got back is that kids were significantly more concerned about accidentally downloading viruses, data breaches, privacy risks, and getting scammed out of money than their parents. So in all four of those categories, kids were more concerned. I have a few thoughts as to why this might be the case. I think my main theory is that kids are getting this education in schools. I think it's quite common to learn about frauds and scams at school and to maybe even have a fake phishing scam placed by the school admin to help with that teaching process. I know that's something that we've actually done at this office here, and I think that's something that happens in schools as well. And then my other sort of working theory is that oftentimes things like frauds and scams have a relatively immediate consequence. So some other concerns that we had in this list of concerns when it comes to using the internet were things like accessing age-inappropriate content. And I think developmentally, kids tend to think more about immediate effects of actions versus the long-term effects of actions as well. So maybe this is another reason why scams and things like scams really rose to the top of their mind and the top of their list. And then conversely with parents, we hear all the time that their main worry is social media, and that's a big worry for kids as well. But I think kids being focused on this frauds and scam piece too makes the work that you're all doing at 1Password really, really important as well.
Yeah, it is really surprising. It's not surprising to me that parents are worried about social media, but the scam angle really does surprise me.
Yeah.
What kinds of scams are kids and teens most worried about? What are they most vulnerable to? Are there common patterns that you're seeing online here?
Yeah, so kids were most concerned about accidentally downloading viruses. In terms of a common pattern, I think that childhood and especially the teenage years are prime years for exploration. And in our digital age, of course, that includes doing a lot of exploration online and in the digital world as well. And as you know all too well, heading to the wrong site or, clicking the wrong link in an email is really easy to do out of curiosity while you're doing that exploration. That's really common among teenagers and young kids as well. And then another scam that we found in the research and one that I've talked to kids on an individual level about as well is this idea of getting scammed out of money. I think there's a few different ways that this could happen. But one that we're seeing that is a pretty dark way is that a scammer will get a hold of information or photos of a child and say, if you don't send me this amount of money back, I will send this photo or this info to all your friends and family. And this is becoming, I think, even worse in our age of AI, where bad actors can sort of fabricate an image or fabricate information and spread it around and sort of have like a ransom out. I'll send this information or this photo if you don't send me this money. So that's something else that we're seeing and that we're keeping an eye on as well.
Okay, so one of the things that I've heard time and again is that one of the easiest ways to combat this is just through open discourse with your kids.
Yeah.
So keep the dialogue open, talk about this stuff. What
Right.
do you find are some of the best ways for parents and kids to get that dialogue going, to have those conversations without the kids feeling scared or overwhelmed or anything else?
Yeah. And at FOSI, we're really big on having open and honest conversations really early on with your child to make them be, very commonplace in the household. And I think particularly when we're having this discussion on frauds and scams, I was actually talking to some kids about frauds and scams just a few days ago. Actually, like a girl just came up to me at an event that I was at and she started talking to me about her parents and frauds and scams and things like that, sort of organically. And what I was hearing from her and from her peers as well is that, of course, they're worried about falling for a scam or something like that, but they're also worried about their parents and their grandparents falling for these scams as well. So of course, this is like sweet, right? Like it's nice to hear that teens and kids are worried and thinking about their parents and their grandparents in this way. But I also think for parents, there's a lot of strength in this dynamic. You can frame the conversation as we're all in this together and we all need to figure out how to stay safe online together. So let's have a conversation. Let's navigate together. Let's make this commonplace so then it's less scary as well. To go off of that, like a piece of advice that we give at FOSI a lot is don't make these conversations incredibly formal and don't make them one-way conversations. So depending on your kid and their experience, like having a very formal sort of lecture conversation about this could make them more scared or more overwhelmed, or it could make them shut down, or maybe both. So we recommend bringing up this conversation among staying safe and frauds and scams in maybe a more casual way. Like, for example, when you're driving them to practice or doing another sort of activity with them, ask them questions and then listen to their opinions as well. We think that this can really help take the pressure off and it makes them feel included in the conversation. And, they really should be included in these conversations. They've been online their whole lives in a way that many, many parents have not. And it's a subject that they have really valuable input about. So having this be a two-way conversation is really, really helpful.
Yeah, for sure. I know from my own experience that car rides there's like a secret environment that exists in a car ride where my daughter for sure will just be like, open up about everything. It's really fascinating to watch. It's like if you ever just need to have a conversation, just get in the car and go somewhere and it'll happen. It'll naturally happen.
Right. And I think too, when you're like driving maybe some of her friends around, like you get to hear conversations and see their worries in a way that maybe you don't in other ways. So that can be really cool and eye-opening as well.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
Is there anything new in tech that's changing or causing new threats for kids? Is there some hot new app or playground that's causing problems that parents should know about?
Yeah, I love phrasing this as like a hot new app on the playground type of way. I think that's really funny and sort of a good way to put it, especially when we're thinking about kids and exploration and curiosity too. I think my answer isn't really going to surprise anyone. AI, I think the specific type of AI that I've been focusing on and thinking about a lot is AI that can impersonate a real human being. So like a chatbot. These chatbots are easily accessible in many places, including like Instagram and Facebook and even the App Store. You can download bots like this as well. And we're also hearing in conversations that we have with kids here at FOSI that they're getting targeted with ads about chatbots, often on commonplace social media apps that a lot of them are using. So even if they're not sort of seeking out this type of bot to have this type of communication, they're still getting it through targeted advertising. And then they may go out and, again, out of curiosity, talk to one and see what it's all about. So maybe to back up a little bit and like explain what a chatbot is. Basically, it's an AI. They impersonate a human being or a TV character or a celebrity or something like that. And when I was prepping for this, I actually looked at the chatbots that were advertised to me on Instagram specifically. And my number one recommendation was Chris the talking dog. And then my number two recommendation was Satan. So, I mean, do with that what you will. But I feel like, it can really just to show the breadth of what these chatbots are able to do in the conversations you can have. But all jokes aside, these chatbots worry me because it can be hard for kids, especially young kids, to differentiate if they're talking to a human or a robot, right? Like I was talking to a child developmental psychologist who focuses a lot on young children and screens. And she was telling me that really until the age of 8, it's really difficult for kids to differentiate between advertising content and regular content. So imagine then we're bringing like AI content into the mix of that. I think it's really difficult for them to make that differentiation at such a young age. And we also really don't know where chatbots are getting their information from, which, that could lead to the spread of misinformation and things like that. And I think we're also tracking and worried a little bit about codependence on chatbots over real human connections, especially for kids who might be lonely or seeking a connection that they don't have in real life. And I think some chatbots can really feed on this codependence through notifications like, come back, I miss you, and things like that. So that's something that we are thinking about and tracking and definitely keeping an eye on here at FOSI.
Yeah. That stuff is, as a parent, terrifying. It is really scary to think that your child could be conversing with a chatbot to fill some gap that they have in their life, in their relationships, and something else. And you don't know what's coming in through that conversation, unless, of course, they're talking to Satan, and then you're pretty sure that you do know what's coming back. Yeah.
And I should be clear, I didn't open the conversation, but.
Oh my gosh. All right. I want to transition a little bit over to the 7 steps to good digital parenting. FOSI's free download for this, or free resource for this, is a really useful framework, especially for parents who don't know where to begin. So I figured it'd be useful for us to go through these one at a time. I'll read off the tips, and then I'll ask you some follow-up questions. So the first one is talk with your kids. We talked about this before. Parents might find it hard to find the right time to talk about security with their kids. Is there a time in the day that you recommend people bring this up?
I can tell you the worst time of day to bring it up is, after something bad has happened. Like, my main piece of advice here would be to be proactive and then incorporate these discussions into normal conversations like we talked a little bit about before as well. I think the exact time of day probably depends on the child and the family's routine. I can tell you when I was a teen, if you tried to talk to me about something when I first woke up, it just wasn't happening. Like, I wasn't going to be retaining it, and I wasn't probably going to be very nice about it either. So, I'd recommend a time when you aren't in a rush and when your child has enough time to absorb what you're saying and also ask questions and meaningfully contribute to the conversation. I know we've talked about the car and how that can be a really sacred space. I think other areas where having these conversations might be helpful is maybe during a family dinner or on a long drive or on a long walk or something like that.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, nice. All right, number 2, educate yourself. Parents are always incredibly busy and don't always have time to keep up with the latest tech and trends. How can we quickly educate ourselves without adding yet more strain to our day and our time?
Yeah, I think I want to first acknowledge the stress and the pressure that can come along with digital parenting. Parents often feel overwhelmed with digital parenting because it is overwhelming. It's not a personal failure to feel this way. And I think it's really important to include that in this conversation. And I think with that said, to provide some practical tips, the easiest way for parents to educate themselves is to seek out resources about digital parenting. As you've mentioned, what we're talking through right now is based on FOSI's 7 Steps resource. We have a lot of other resources on the FOSI website, but if you're too busy for written resources, we also offer a lot of videos and short videos as well, so parents can listen on the go. Something else that I like to say is parents don't have to conquer everything all at once. And I think it can really feel that way because it often feels like you're getting sort of attacked from every angle with all the different possible digital devices and platforms and things like that. But I recommend talking with your kid about the devices and the platforms that they use the most, and then start learning more about those specific areas of the digital world. And then hopefully this makes everything feel a lot less overwhelming. And then I think the more you talk to them, the more at ease you might feel. And then on a similar note, and something that we've sort of brought up before, is let your kid educate you. And I think the best way to do this is sit with them as they are online, as they're gaming, whatever they like to do, and have them talk through what they're doing, how they're doing it, and why they like the content that they like. I think that can be really helpful as well.
Yeah. I hadn't considered that one, nor have we done that one, but I will probably be doing it tonight after work. Number 3 on the list here is use parental controls. What are some controls that you recommend parents turn on first, and what do you think has the largest impact?
Yeah, to maybe give not the most satisfying answer, I don't think there's like a one size fits all here. Again, I think it's really dependent on the child's age and their personality, their interests, their digital habits. All of those things I think come into play. But I do recommend starting on the platforms and devices that kids use the most. So to give like a concrete example, let's say your kid's on PlayStation playing Fortnite a lot. So start there, familiarize yourself with the parental controls that exist on PlayStation, the parental controls that exist through Fortnite, and start by enforcing those. And I think what you'll find is that figuring out one device or one platform's parental controls makes it easier to then learn about the others as well. Going back to our research as well, we did find that the most common parental control among caregivers is app and website restrictions. So we define this as preventing kids from accessing certain sites or downloading certain content or apps and things like that. And this can help ensure that kids are only seeing age-appropriate content while exploring the online world. Of course, it's not perfect, but I think it can help a lot. And I think it's something that's easy to utilize because every app has an age rating. So if parents can really easily select, well, I don't want my child to see anything above this age, and then it's implemented on their devices. So I think it's common because it's effective and because it's a lower lift than maybe some of the other ones that can be quite involved and honestly quite confusing as well.
Yeah.
And I think my last note would be a lot of companies and platforms have like a family center with a lot of controls all in one place. And oftentimes they're often customizable as well. So what comes to mind for me is something like Google Family Link or even 1Password's Families Plan. It's one place where parents can sort of dictate how 1Password is going to work across all family members. And that streamlined approach is really helpful for parents and might calm some of that overwhelm as well.
Yeah, we have between our two kids, like there's different levels of control just based on their interests. But it's been really nice to see things like TikTok family pairing and Instagram family accounts and child accounts and stuff like that. That's helped quite a bit because then you get that it's tailored to the service.
Right.
It provides sort of that extra level of coverage over just like screen time restrictions if you're in the Apple ecosystem, like things like that. So that's been really nice to see and been able to use, and we've been able to use that effectively, which has been good.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I think when you mentioned having two kids, obviously their age comes into play in their maturity level as what is appropriate and what is not for them. So having these sort of like customizable systems, I think can be really, really helpful in terms of helping parents navigate what can seem, again, like a really overwhelming landscape.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's move on. Number 4, set ground rules and enforce consequences. Do you have some examples of like effective but fair ground rules and consequences?
Yeah, so the most common ground rule that we've seen both anecdotally but also in our research is that children need to complete their responsibilities before they can use their devices, let's say recreationally, because maybe their responsibility is homework and they need the laptop. But to give a concrete example, kids can't use their tablet to play Roblox until they finish their homework and walk the dog or something like that. So I think parents find this to be a great way to instill routine and reinforce the importance of following through on responsibilities as well. And then another common ground rule that we saw through our research, and one that we really, really recommend, is tech-free zones and times. So I think the most common example of this is no phones at the dinner table. This is really effective for some families because it's a place where families gather and they want to talk to each other and they don't want distractions from the outside world. Others might not eat dinner together every night. So maybe there's a different option there too, like no phones after 8 p.m. or no phones while we're doing a different activity that we often do together as well. And we also encourage a tech-free zone to be specifically devices in the bedroom. Devices of any kind are really disruptive to sleep, and it can have negative developmental effects on kids. And honestly, it's not good for any of us to have our devices by our beds while we sleep. Easier said than done, but that is something that we recommend as well. And to switch and talk a little bit about consequences, the most common one that we found in our research is taking away the device if a child violates the rules. And this can be really effective. They violated the rules, so they don't have access to the device. I think it's really important to talk to your child about why you're taking away the device and make sure you tell them that you're looking forward to getting back on track and getting back to using devices in the way that you agreed upon. But for now, we need to take it away and regroup a little bit as well. And I think that this can be effective for some families, but I also do want to, again, acknowledge that taking away the device as a blanket, you can't have it at all, isn't effective for all families, like especially if you have two working parents and the device is really a way for the kid to contact the parents while they're at work or to get to and from school safely or something like that. So in these cases, I recommend limiting use. So maybe they only have it when they're outside of the house, and once they're home safely, it's locked or something like that. Or you can restrict certain apps or platforms, but not others, depending, I think, on what the misbehavior was. These are some popular options as well. And I think when you're setting any of these ground rules, it's really important to make them clear. And then, like with any rule, enforce the rule and the potential consequence consistently. But also know, like as we were just talking about with your two kids, that as your child grows and matures, these rules are going to change. And being clear about when they change and why they're changing as well, I think is really, really valuable to keep the open dialogue and keep your child in the loop as to what the expectations are.
Yeah, that was a conversation that we had a lot with my daughter as she was getting older. Was I understand that these restrictions feel onerous right now and feel heavy-handed.
Right.
As you get older, these restrictions are going to dial back. Like you will see these things start to ease off a little bit. And I think that we've hit sort of a good equilibrium right now where I think that there's enough control. I don't like to use the word necessarily control, but like enough sort of like reassurance from our side that she's using these things in a healthy way, and she feels free enough that she doesn't feel like we're sort of like constantly turning the clamp down on what she's able to do. So yeah, that sort of like adjustment over time is a good thing to keep in mind and to communicate with your kids about.
Yeah, and I think that it's great that you found that sort of equilibrium. And a metaphor that our CEO Stephen likes to use is going from the parent in the pilot seat to becoming more of a co-pilot and, flying the plane, the metaphorical plane along with your child as they get older, especially as they enter like the high school years.
Yeah.
And kids can sort of start to think about what works best for them and maybe implementing online safety tools that they know will work for them and their habits and routines as well.
Yeah. Yep. Let's hit number 5. Friend and follow, but don't stalk. Can you talk about this one? Why is this advised? How do parents do this without sort of invading their kids' space online?
Yeah, so not to sound like a broken record, but I think having this collaborative relationship with your child when it comes to online safety is really, really, really important. So having that open and honest communication from a young age is really vital. But that said, growing up, especially in the teenage years, is about finding out who you are as an individual and forming your own identity. And I think to do this, there's that natural inclination to explore, try out different personas, and to learn from people other than your own parents. And the internet is a really great place to do this and experiment in this way. But also, as we both know, the internet can also sometimes be a place of uncertainty or danger as well. And this is why we recommend the parent being their child's first follower on social media or any other platform that we're on. That way you can follow along with and keep an eye on your child's online presence without being too overbearing. So you're there, you're involved, but you're not constantly, looking in their phone or going behind their back and things like that. We've seen like if parents are watching their child's every single move, this sows seeds of distrust that could damage your relationship or even lead your child to get kind of sneaky and start to engage in the digital world behind your back with like anonymous accounts or, using friends' devices and things like that. So we really recommend obviously being involved, being that pilot and that co-pilot eventually as well. But if you become too much into the stalking realm, then you lose that trust and kids find other ways to get around it as well, I think.
Yes, I remember being a teenager and having lots of ways to get around lots of things. So like it's, yeah.
Me too.
All right, let's go to number 6. Explore, share, and celebrate. Can you talk about what this one means? Why is it important to do this one together? I'm sure we're going to hear a lot of the same words, but I'd love to hear about like what this is exactly.
Yeah, I really like this one because I think a lot of online safety education focuses on the dangers and the risks, which are there and are important to address. But there are a lot of benefits to the digital world, and I like that this rule sort of points those out as well. So in terms of why it's important to do this together, first, exploring and sharing and celebrating together helps parents get a clear understanding of how their children are using the internet and where they're spending their time. And while you're engaging with this preferred content of your child, you can also ask them why they enjoy their favorite digital experiences and what they get out of them. And I think it will likely lead to a greater understanding for both of you about what is happening online and why it appeals to your child and things like that. But I think the second reason is that it's just a really great way to bond. Like you might come away with a shared hobby or an experience that enriches your overall family life. You know, maybe your child really likes to play a certain game on Roblox or on the Xbox or whatever it may be, and they teach you how to play it, and now you have a new thing to do together. I was actually talking to a parent and a child the other day who was saying that the child sort of helped her mom learn how to use TikTok, and now the mom loves to make like family vacation TikToks and things like that, and that's something that they do together. So I think having that bonding and using like your digital presence to come closer together can be really, really impactful and a really great way to have fun as a family as well.
That's cool. I like that. All right, let's bring it home here with number 7. Be a good digital role model. In what ways can parents be a good digital role model for their kids, and why is it so crucial?
Yeah, I think there's a few different ways. So first is like setting those boundaries around tech use. When you're setting those boundaries, we recommend that you should follow them too. So to go back to our very classic example, if the rule is no phones at the dinner table, then you shouldn't have your phone at the dinner table either, right? Like you should be emulating what you want to see from your children. I do want to give the caveat, of course, like sometimes this is just not possible. Parents are adults with adult responsibilities, and maybe they have to be on their devices because they have to pay the bills. But I think like if something like that is the case, explaining to your child why you're breaking the rule and again, being upfront about why you're shifting your habits for the time being is really important as well. And then I think the other side of being a good digital role model is what are you posting online? What's the content that you're posting online? You know, like I said, your child's going to emulate you. You are their first role model typically. So are you posting content that could be mis or disinformation without double checking? Are you being rude or uncivil to others in any way? When you're posting online, think like, are these behaviors that you want your child to replicate? And if not, work to change your digital habits as well. I think being a digital role model is really crucial because your digital parenting isn't really going to hold water if you're not practicing what you preach. If you say one thing and do the other, your child might get confused or lose trust in your authority. And if you want your child to have a healthy relationship with technology, then you have to have one too.
Yeah. This is something that I've thought about a lot. Like there have been times when, you know, my battery's a little bit low, my social battery, my personal battery, not my device battery. Right. And I just want to lay on the couch and scroll for a little bit, right? And it's like, there's times where I'm like, I don't want the kids to see me do this. Right. Like, this is not behavior I want to model for them. We have a time limit for my daughter on Instagram. I also have a time limit on Instagram that I've set up for myself just to like make sure that I haven't accidentally spent an hour and a half scrolling through Reels. And she has seen that show up on my phone. She has seen me experience the time limit and go, well, I guess I'm done with Instagram for the day, and just, you know, close it and put it away. So like there are those moments where you can find ways to model even like the same restrictions that you're putting in place for them for yourself. And it creates this sort of like shared environment where she can feel okay, where your child can feel okay because they're not alone in what they're experiencing.
Yeah. I love that. And again, it's not a super formal thing that you're doing. You're just kind of living your digital life the way you would if she was looking or not, but she is observing it and taking it in as children are prone to do, right? And I think it's important to know that like these things are fluid. So like your example of your social battery's really low and you just want to lay and scroll, that happens, right? I was thinking like about a month ago, I was on a train for like 8.5 hours straight. And I was thinking if I had a child, the screen time, the screen use limit would be very, very different on this day that we're on the train than it would be on your normal day to day, right? So like explaining that fluidity and that things sometimes change and being clear with your emotions or like why the change is happening, I think can go a long way. I think kids always understand more than we give them credit for.
Yeah, for sure. So as we reflect on the 7 steps, are there any that you think parents struggle with the most? Like, are there ones that you're like, oh, this is going to be a trouble spot? And do you put extra effort into helping parents overcome some of those difficulties?
Yeah. And I think that all 7 have their challenges, right? But the one that I think it would be great to focus in on is we often hear that parents have trouble with the educating themselves piece. And it's not because they don't want to or because they can't. It's more because they're just overwhelmed and they don't know where to start. And then there's also this sort of shame, I think, that comes along with digital parenting. Like when I tell people what I do for a living, I'll hear like, well, I know I shouldn't, but I let my child do X, Y, Z and things like that. So that's an area where I think parents can struggle because it's time consuming and because it can feel like, oh, I've been a bad parent, and things like that. So to overcome this, I think it takes us as an online safety community taking away this stigma that exists among digital parenting. There's such pressure to be perfect, but nobody's the perfect parent. Nobody's the perfect digital parent. And learning along the way is going to be part of the process, especially when it comes to a area like the online world, which is changing basically every day. I think we can't operate from a place of fear mongering because it's not productive and it doesn't help people educate themselves better as well. So I think that it really comes down to us as a community. It takes a village, right, to get online safety resources out there in an accessible and inclusive way. And I also think like tech companies need to listen to parents. They need to listen to kids. They need to listen to teens. What are their fears, their misunderstandings, their concerns, and then work to assuage them with resources and responsible product development as well.
Yeah, it has been really heartening to see companies like Meta come out with the Instagram family accounts and certainly TikTok embracing that and stuff. And Google has it as well. Like it's really nice that I feel like we're entering this age and we're right at the beginning of it where companies are equipping parents a little bit more as we are now. As you said, we've got kids who they were born into this world of just having the internet all the time. Whereas I know for myself, there was the world before the internet and then where we are today, right? So
exactly. Yeah.
That's really good to see. You mentioned, parents feeling shame, and I know that I've shared some wins today, some things that have gone well. For every single thing that I have mentioned that has gone well today, there have probably been 1,000 things that have gone very poorly and that did not work out and did not go well. And so shame is not something parents should feel. This stuff is not easy. It is not, it is a difficult environment to navigate because you said it is changing every single day and there's always something new to stay on top of. It's really hard.
Right. And it's generally kids are there before parents are, right? So sometimes I think it can feel like whack-a-mole. And I think it's just really important to let parents know that it's not their fault. I think that's really the first step in helping them progress in their online safety and digital parenting journey.
Yeah, for sure. Is there a common misconception that you think parents have when it comes to monitoring versus trusting their kids online? Like, how do you help strike that healthy balance?
Yeah, I really like this question. So from what I've heard from parents, the idea of like trusting is equated with hands-off approach. And a hands-off approach is not something that parents feel comfortable doing for all the reasons that we just mentioned and what we've talked about throughout this entire conversation. So I think they sometimes dismiss this trusting advice and choose to monitor their kids' every move online instead because that feels like the safer option. But it's important to understand that trusting does not mean hands off. It means collaboration and talking about online harms, talking about online benefits, while also still checking in on your child's online habits and online posts and things like that, right? Like being that friend, but not that stalker, right? And I think it means leading really with an open mind and not with an accusatory attitude is really what it comes down to.
Yeah, yeah. Are there signs that a child might be experiencing something unsafe online? Like what should a parent do if they suspect something's gone wrong? And I think this dovetails really nicely out of the sort of like trust, monitor and trust equation, right? Because you also don't want to show up and make your child feel ashamed about something that they might have experienced either.
Yeah. So I think building that foundation of trust will help if and when something goes wrong online, right? If you already have that foundation, you're not starting from ground zero. And I think that can be really, really helpful. So I think some common signs that we came up with include, are they on their devices like a lot more or a lot less than their normal? That's a sign. Are they hiding their screens when someone walks by, especially someone of authority like a parent or, a teacher or something like that? And are they hesitant to tell you what they are doing on their devices? And then I think there are some emotional components as well. Is there increased anxiety, irritability, like a significant change in energy levels or anything like that? I know those emotions could just be being a teen, right? So, take that with a little bit of a grain of salt. But think if all of these emotions or some of these emotions are at play or at an extreme that they're usually not at, and you're seeing these behaviors happening around screens, then there might be something bad happening in their online world that needs to be addressed. So, and then in terms of like addressing it, like we were just mentioning, try to talk to your kid about it, but don't be confrontational. I don't think there's anything more important than not leading with confrontation. That's not going to get you very far. You have to open up the conversation saying that you're here to listen and to help and not to just judge and punish, and let them know that they can tell you anything and that you're not going to get mad. Maybe there'll be a consequence if it's deserved, but you won't be angry at them. And I think that can go a long way as well. And, overall, just making them feel safe and comfortable talking to you.
Yeah. So we've spoken a lot today about being proactive parents when it comes to younger children or teens, but if you're an adult with older parents, there's also a pretty big online safety component here as well. Right. How do we think about this?
Yeah, I love this question and really happy that we get to address it today. I think to bring it back to where we opened the conversation with scams and fraud, some older people are more prone to scams and fraud than younger people because they're not as digitally literate. They didn't have tech integrated into their schools and workplaces the way that we do now. So they're just not as familiar with it. So with this main worry being frauds and scams or like phishing emails or calls or things like that, it's getting worse again with like AI, and bad actors are able to make their messages and even their phone calls more believable than they were before. And it can be really, really confusing for older people and really everyone as well. So my advice would be similar to how parents might navigate online safety with their children, like we've been talking about throughout this conversation. I think that can really be applied to adults with older parents as well. Make sure they know that you, as the adult child, are a trusted and reliable resource they can come to with questions, and also like without shame and judgment as well too. So my mom will do this sometimes, and Mom, if you're listening, I'm not calling you old, but she'll get a spam message and she'll pop it into the group chat with my brother and I and just say, is this a scam or not? And one of us will answer her. And so I think just like being there to answer their questions can go a long way if you're not like judging them or shaming them or being like, oh, obviously this is a scam or whatnot. And they feel like they can come to you. I think that's really helpful as well. And if you can't, or if maybe you're not sure, like maybe they're sending you this information and you're like, I actually don't know if this is a scam or not. again, seeking out resources. So I think in the case of older adults, the AARP has a lot of great resources in terms of frauds and scams, and they can go a long way in keeping them safe as well.
Yeah, that's really nice. Yeah, I love that your mom does that. Like, that's really smart. Like, to just be like, hey, like, can someone else look at this is such a great muscle for someone to have, because it is so easy to be tricked. Yeah. Like, even you and I can be tricked by certainly some of the sophistication that's coming out these days. And so having like another pair of eyes on it is great. For my own mom, she has this sort of like default no. She defaults to answering no to things when asked, awesome. Like in this environment, which I love. Like if someone comes to the door and is like, hey, I'm doing an energy audit. Can I see your last electrical bill? She's like, oh, no, you can't see that. Right. Or like, you know, various emails that she'll get. She'll be like, no, I don't think this is legit. She'll just delete it.
Oh, so awesome.
That's like another really healthy skepticism, I think, is a good way to instill in people.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's a transferable skill that we've been taught for a while when it comes to, you know, misinformation and things like that, too. So look at our moms go.
Yeah. All right. So we've talked about a lot today. Yeah. If there's just one thing that people should take away from this episode, like one thing that they should do today to help build a safer digital environment at home, what's that one thing?
Yeah, so I think my one thing would be have a conversation with the whole family about online safety. I wonder how many times I've said the word conversation throughout our conversation, right? Like, I think that is such an important place to set the groundwork. And I think just having these conversations, even if they're not super serious, are ways to help you bond and also help you figure out how you can stay safer online and figure out what that means to you and your family. And if you have this conversation often, if it's part of your open dialogue, then I think you'll see everyone's approach from the child to the parent to the grandparent for their digital lives sort of change for the better. So that would be my one piece of advice.
Nice. That's really good. I like that a lot. Okay. Finally, where can people go to find FOSI's resources, like the 7 Steps to Good Digital Parenting? How can they stay up to date with the work that you and the team are doing?
Yeah, so you can find us at www.fosi.org, and specifically our parenting resources are at www.fosi.org/parenting. We're also on most of the social media, so LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, and Blue Sky. So you can find us there as well.
Very nice. Wonderful. Well, Alanna, this was great. Thank you so much for taking the time today. We covered some great ground.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was awesome.
Well, that was a wonderful chat, Rue, with Alanna. I'm very happy to see us having FOSI back on the show again because they're doing such amazing work out there for families and youth today. But at this point, it's time for Ask One Password, where we answer all of the questions from our listeners. And since Aunt Agony Root is back from PTO, we've got some opportunity here because we were lost without you last time. Were your Agony Aunt skills required elsewhere while you were away?
Let's see. I don't think so. I had one incident where my mom called about something wrong with her computer that my brother helped her out with. Turns out her keyboard had run out of batteries and she just needed to plug it in. That was an easy one.
Oh.
Other than that, no, everything seemed to be well in hand.
Nice. Well, in that case, we do have an email from Ellie who could use some help. Hey, random but memorable crew. I remember hearing something on the podcast recently about storing answers to security questions in 1Password. How can I generate answers to those security questions and store them in 1Password? How does it work? Loving the show. Keep up the good work. Ellie.
Yes, that's correct. You can use 1Password to create and store answers to common security questions. And it's actually a smart thing to do because it's often possible to deduce answers to standard security questions like your mother's maiden name, the street you grew up on, since attackers can sometimes find that information online. So in 1Password, you can generate fake answers using our word list password generator, our random word generator, and you save them in a custom field so that they're always there when you need them. You also have to make sure that you store the question too, of course, so you know what the answer is referring to later on. This is actually a dedicated piece of functionality in the 1Password apps. So if you go and you edit one of your items, you can add a section that is security questions, and then you can pick from some baked-in security questions, or you can pick one of those and then modify it. So if what was the color of the house that you grew up in might not be one of the baked in security questions, but you can just change it to that and then generate an answer for it and put it into the website. And it sounds odd, like, you know, some of the ways that you use this is you give these answers over the phone at times. So it can be odd if someone says, like, hey, what's your first pet's name? And you go shed camel blanket sound. They type that in and go, well, that's right, but also weird. It's worth doing that to know that the information is just not personally identifiable. It's a little bit extra work, but it is highly recommended.
I thought that was a common name for a pet, is shed camel blanket sound.
Come here, Shed. Come here, Sheddy.
The nice thing is, too, when you use the random word generator for that kind of stuff, like if you're trying to say things out loud, it's not, you know, uppercase this, lowercase that, hashtag that, you know, like it's,
yeah,
you
true.
can just have those things. I also find that sometimes we use big words. It gives my brain a chance to be like, what does that word mean? So thank you, Ellie, for writing in with that. We appreciate that. And if you have any questions for us, please send in your messages and emails over to podcast@onepassword.com. It can be 1Password related, security related, or bingo related, whatever floats your boat. We would also love to keep the conversation going around digital parenting. If you have any advice or questions, reach out and we'll do our best to include them in future episodes.
Excellent. So I think we've reached the final part of our show and our security game. So we've had some great feedback on this, with loads of you loving it so far. So I think it's time that we get straight into it. So, welcome to Hack or Hoax. The rules are pretty simple. You're about to hear a story, a curious tale from the weird and wacky world of cybersecurity. Each episode, we will read out a short tale of a hack. Some of these stories are scarily true, others are totally made up. Your job, along with ours, is to figure out which is which. Is it real or is it a hoax? Are you ready for the story, Sarah Rue?
Let's go.
So ready.
Okay, so... In the autumn of 2021, something strange began to flicker across Europe, not in the sky, but in homes and showrooms filled with IKEA's sleek, trude-free smart lamps. It started quietly, a few confused users, blinking lights, murmurs on Reddit. Within hours, thousands of lamps were pulsing in unison, a silent rave that refused to stop unless unplugged at the source. Behind the chaos was a teenage hacker, barely 17, who discovered a hidden flaw in the lamp's firmware. With a few lines of code, they hijacked more than 4,000 lights across the continent. It wasn't ransom, it wasn't political, it was, as the hacker later put it, just to see if he could. As showrooms descended into disco-like confusion and dinner parties turned into epileptic hazards, IKEA scrambled. A patch was released within days and the lights finally settled, but not before the internet lit up with videos of flickering lounges and one particularly furious man who claimed the blinking ruined his beef bourguignon. As the emergency patch rolled out, lights went still, but for a brief moment, Europe was caught in a strange digital storm, a reminder that even the humblest lamp can become vulnerable when mischief meets code. So is that a hack or a hoax?
I want this to be true. I really want this to be true.
Me too.
Because it's so good-natured. Like, it's like...
And like, I wanted to do it to see if I could. It's the reason that you do stuff,
it's
right?
It's so harmless.
Just to see if I could.
Gosh. Oh, you know what? I'm going to say that it's real because I want it to be real. Yes, that's where I'm landing.
I like it. You got to commit.
If it wasn't for so for me, there was the beef bourguignon. That's like, oh, that's a detail too far when you're putting some, like that's a bit too much. But if it was more like, like the smart light bulbs or like being an IKEA fixture is what's throwing me off, as opposed to like it being like the light bulbs. So I've got to go with hoax on that one, but I would like it to be real.
Okay, so obviously one of you is correct. And this week it is Sarah. So it is a hoax this week, sadly. But I was with you, Rue. I wanted this one to be real. But it was entirely fabricated by me, but plausible enough in the era of kind of IoT, I think.
All I can think about is the kids who, like, I don't know if you've ever had that where you're watching something and all of a sudden your sound is gone and it's because one of your friends, your kids' friends, they come over, they co-opt your system and they start screen sharing and airplaying and you're like, what's happening to my stuff? Like, that's 100% what I was thinking was going to happen here.
I am sad that this is not real.
All right.
Well, thank you so much for listening. A huge thank you again to Alanna at the Family Online Safety Institute for joining us on today's show. You can follow Random But Memorable on our new YouTube channel. We don't say this very often, but if you do love the show, please leave a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts and recommend us to a friend. It makes a world of difference for us. And if you want to discuss anything in this episode, head on over to onepassword.community. We'd love to hear from you.
Lovely.
Yay.
I guess all that's left to say is love you, bye-bye.
Love you. Bye.
Love you. Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in this week. If you're enjoying the show, we'd love it if you could subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can also leave us a rating or review. It's one of the best ways to support the Random But Memorable podcast, and we always love hearing your feedback. We're also a community-led podcast, so if you have any questions for us, topic requests, or even guests you want to hear from, please send us a message to podcast@onepassword.com. We read all of your comments and look forward to hearing from you. We hope you join us next episode for plenty more random moments in the world of cybersecurity.